Welcome to the Ports Garrison. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you. Greetings, and once again, welcome to the Ports Garrison. I am Phil the Poet, and today I want to thank you, as always, for watching, for supporting the channel, for sharing the videos, and just for the comments and the interaction. Now, today, I want to share my thoughts on something that I observed. Now, for me, the Senate is one of those places where laws are discussed before they are passed. And so I think that the persons who sit in those chambers or in that house ought to be of a certain level of competence, have to have a certain kind of capacity, certain degree of decorum and decency. And I think that the Prime Minister has dropped the bar, or that bar, on the ground to an extent. As a matter of fact, I think he has dug a hole and buried the bar in there. And the reason why I say this is I look at at least one of the persons he has recently elected to sit in the Senate. And I speak of no other than Abka Fitz Henley. I think described by most of the journalists. I am not sure I can adequately or call him a journalist, just as I would struggle to call him a senator. One thing about him is that when he was a journalist or on the radio, I always thought he was making an effort to sound like esteemed journalist Peter Abrams. Like, why is this guy trying to sound like Peter Abrams? Well, anyway, the type of journalism that he practiced was the cas-cas, chit-chat, breaking news, somebody tell him something, the kind of thing that, shock value kind of journalism. And he has kind of brought that into the Senate. Now, the discussion in the Senate that day was about the changes in the Constitution, again, to extend the retirement age of the Auditor General and Director of Public Prosecution. And I watched some very good presentation, Donna Scott, Motley's presentation, Bunting presentation, I watched Damian Crawford's presentation, and then I had to see, I can't even know if I could call it a presentation by Abka Fitz Henley. Again, I don't want to misquote and paraphrase. So here, take a look at what he had to offer.
Thank you, sir. I've assumed my feet briefly, sir, to indicate my strong support for the bill which endeavors to increase the ages of retirement for two very important office holders in Jamaica, the Auditor General and the Director of Public Prosecutions. And the reason I'm supportive of the move is that I find it a sound basis that the Pensions Services Act, which was promulgated in 2017, sought to, among other things, gradually increase the age of retirement for public officers. And moves were not made in this regard for the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Auditor General. I think it is only fair and just that that be corrected. Indeed, it is this administration that moved to increase the retirement age for judges only a few years ago, and I note there was muted opposition to this, which begs the question that the constitutional officers, that is, well, the constitutional officer that is the DPP, is the argument that whoever that individual is not deserving of serving until age 65 with the opportunity of an extension and making submissions to people who have been afforded that facilitation. I think this move to bring some uniformity to the process is in good order. And indeed, it's a principle that is trite in the legal field, that equality before the law is to be encouraged. I want to make a point. I heard earlier the leader of opposition business read a letter to the Senate from a senior deputy director, but he alluded to a letter which he says was sent to office holders in Jamaica objecting to the extension in the tenure of the current director of public prosecutions. Another principle in law is that those who come to the bar should, and seek justice, should do so with equity. And perhaps if they are in custody, I was hoping, Mr. President, that this debate would be pursued in a manner that is not personalized. But unfortunately, based on the submissions of members of the opposition, we have seen aspersions cast on certain office holders, questions in the public domain whether promises were made about favors being granted. I think that is most unfortunate and unbecoming. That has been said in the public domain by no less a person than the leader of the opposition. That it raises the question of whether favors were promised in exchange for an extension. I find that unfortunate and unbecoming. Which brings me to my third point. I want to advise the Jamaican people that though a perception might have been created that what is happening here is abnormal in terms of increasing the retirement ages of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Auditor General, that is not so. In the majority of Caribbean countries, the retirement ages of the two office holders is 65 and some beyond. This is so in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and in Ireland. So this administration is acting lawfully and bringing what obtains in Jamaica into some form of, well, some semblance of uniformity with what happens or what is the current situation in other Caribbean countries. This side is acting lawfully in pursuing this amendment. And you know, Mr. President, before I close, I wish to make a couple of points and support a point articulated by the minister who tabled this bill. I heard the submissions by members of the opposition and I felt a bit saddened. And I'll tell you why. I heard politicians, some ages 62, some 66, some approaching their 70s, arguing against two outstanding Jamaicans who are in their early 60s, being given the opportunity to continue to give credible service to their country. And I think to myself, I ask the question, what gives us politicians the right to say to these office holders, whether DPP, AG, or judges, look here, we can serve as long as we like as legislators. But you see, you know, when you reach 60, enough of you. I don't like to use the word hypocrisy, Senator Webby. But when I heard the submissions of the members of the opposition, as I said, 62, 66, 69, I thought to myself that the posture may be interpreted as betraying a certain semblance of self-indulgence and double standards, a posture which I submit, should not be countenanced when we make laws in the Parliament of Jamaica. Senator Brown, don't let me answer you. Because if I answer you, you walk out of here today. Don't let me answer you. It has also been suggested in the public domain that the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness is in the habit of breaching the Constitution of Jamaica. And I wish to address that point centrally. It is true that as various administrations attempt to govern, that laws of the land, including the supreme law, in the view of some judges, might be contravened. It shouldn't happen, but it happens the world over. These things happen as administrations seek to govern with a conscience. And this has been the case from the former Michael Mann administration in the 1970s, when the Suppression of Crimes Act was struck down as unconstitutional, and when a panel of judges on the Supreme Court found immunity certificates issued by a former security minister as null, void, manifestly unreasonable, and not in conformity with the Constitution of Jamaica. These things happen, sir. And when the opposition, therefore, seeks to say...
Sorry, no, on a point of order, it doesn't mean resolve it. On a point of order, President.
1 minute.
The young member of the Senate...
What's the...
That's what I'm coming to. The young member of the Senate is discussing a matter that is before the courts, and for which a determination has not yet been finalized, and therefore that's not allowed under the standing order, and therefore it shouldn't be allowed to speak to it.
Go, continue, please.
The matter of the constitutionality of the immunity certificates is not before the court. Therefore,
I asked you to respond to the... I never asked you to respond to the alleged point of order, you know.
Well, here's what I can tell you, though, Mr. President. When the opposition, therefore, says this administration has a tendency of breaching the Constitution, that's not true. It's an argument that is false, a fallacy. It's unbecoming political propaganda. That's what that sort of rhetoric is. And as I close, I've heard members of the opposition speak about constitutional office holders and how they should conduct themselves. And again, I had hoped that we would be able to conclude this debate without personalizing the matter. But unfortunately, based on utterances by members of the opposition, in my view, in here and outside, the matter has been somewhat personalized. So I make this point. I heard a press conference, Mr. President, where a high constitutional office holder argued vociferously against the extension of the DPP's retirement age, and with muted effect the Auditor General. And the suggestion was made that perhaps they are unfit for an extension, which would bring Jamaica in alignment with what obtains in other Caribbean countries. And I find, Mr. President, that there is significant irony in this. You don't start with noise yet. I find that there is significant irony in this posture by the opposition leader. And I'll tell you why. It is not the Director of Public Prosecutions or Auditor General, constitutional office holders, who I hear referring to Jamaicans as little boy and little girl. I haven't heard them do that. I've heard them conduct themselves with decency and decorum. It is surely not the DPP or AG, who I've heard saying they want to run for office and surround themselves with Topanaris, suggesting that the ordinary Jamaican has no part to play in the leadership process. Again, I've heard the two office holders conduct themselves with decency and decorum. And you see, Senator Brown, I have never heard those two key constitutional office holders suggest that if unscrupulous behavior happens in the electoral process, it's no problem. I've never heard them tell Jamaicans, keep your mouth, or refer to any of us as damn fools. So, I say this, Mr. President, it is not any of the two office holders with this pending extension in the retirement age who have conducted themselves in less than a desired manner. I think what the opposition should contemplate is whether a senior constitutional officer, the leader of the opposition who made the comments and postured in the manner I alluded to, is suited to occupy the key constitutional office which he currently occupies. That, I believe, is what the opposition should be contemplating, as opposed to casting aspersions on Jamaicans who have given yeoman service to their country. You see, Senator Bunting, you know, and anytime you will seek to interrupt me, you know, Senator Bunting, anytime you will seek to interrupt me, you know, I have said that Jamaicans are lucky that the Patterson era is over. You two are lucky, because if Mr. Patterson was here, you wouldn't be near. He doesn't appoint losers. You wouldn't be near. So kindly govern your conduct while I make my presentation. Mr. President, I support this bill, which proposes to extend the tenure
President, on a point of
the Auditor
why
General
is the former
and the DPP.
Prime Minister being brought into
If it
this
pleases yourself, I conclude my presentation.
Why is the former Prime Minister being brought into this cast?
Now, when I tune in to watch the Senate, I want to see substance. I want to see well thought out presentations. I don't want to see the side show seeking a one-upmanship thing on the other senators. I don't want the personal kias calling people losers and doing all kind of thing against people personal. Speak to the substance, the matter at hand. Speaks to the substance. Explain something to me that I might not have understood. You know what I'm saying? Make it worthwhile. Just don't go there to show yourself and to be in the limelight and to make some kind of comment when I think necessary. But that's just my view. I don't know if I am biased, or if I am using some preconceived notions against him, or I'm looking for something that is not there or is there. So let me know. Tell me what you think about the presentation of Abka and Prime Minister. You need to put people in there. Maybe you put him in for a purpose, to play the role that Nestor Morgan did play before. I don't know. But let me know in the comment section, my friends, what you thought about this presentation. Well, until we meet again, until something else provokes me, I want to wish you all the best. And as always, I thank you for watching. I ask you to share the video and encourage your friends to subscribe to the channel. And until then, as always, I want to wish you all the best. Peace, happiness, and tranquility. And until we meet again, as always, one love, enough manners, and enough respects. Thanks for watching.